Are you considering moving to Luanda, Angola on an expat assignment and you're not sure what to expect? Well, you're in the right place. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Melissa and I lived in Luanda, Angola for 3.5 years, and I'm here today to give you all the information about living in Luanda, Angola. I created a 3-part series, so this is actually the second video of that series. So if you haven't watched the first one, definitely head down and watch that now, or just watch it after the video because you can watch them out of order. The first video was all about food, poverty, and expat housing in Luanda, Angola. And today's video is going to be about driving, safety, and speaking Portuguese when you live in Luanda. Like I said, I lived in Angola for 3.5 years and then Buenos Aires for 3 years. I'm currently repatriated back in Texas. I live outside of Austin, and I spend my days writing blogs to help you guys live your best expat life. So I take my experiences and my mistakes, and I give you tips and information so you can live your best expat life. So definitely check it out. The website is lifebymelissaandrew.com. And make sure you're following me on Instagram and you can see what I'm up to on a daily basis, and that is at Melissa R. Espinosa. All right, let's get into the video. So like I said, today is the second video in a 3-part series, and we're gonna be talking about driving, safety, and Portuguese. And if you're thinking about moving to Luanda, you're going to want to watch each of these 3 videos because there's so much information and you're not going to want to miss it. And so you don't miss it, go below and hit that red subscribe button. All right, let's get into the video. Our first topic is driving. So my guess is if you're moving to Luanda on an expat assignment with your company, it's probably most likely that they're going to be hiring a driver for you. Driving in Luanda is a contact sport. The roads are crazy, the drivers are crazy, they don't follow road signs, they kind of make up their own ways to drive. They'll go against traffic. I have seen some crazy things living there for 3.5 years. And more than likely, your company will provide you a driver because they want you to be safe. They don't want you to have to deal with traffic or have to worry about the safety of other people. There's always people crossing roads, children that play in the streets. So you really don't want to be in a position where you could injure someone else if you're not used to the situation there. And the traffic and roadways in Luanda are horrendous. I'm sorry if you live there, if you're in Angola and watching this, but you probably agree. They are terrible, and there's only 2 main roadways to get into the city from where a lot of the expats and Angolans live, which is more outside of the city. It's less expensive. There's 2 main roadways, and those are jam-packed. They're always busy, but during traffic hours, so early in the mornings or after work, they are jam-packed, and it takes forever to get anywhere. You are just like crawling. It takes so long. I think we lived less than 10 miles from our office, so between 8 or 9 miles, and it would take us over an hour to get home every day. It was terrible. But I have to say, since everybody had drivers at our company, a lot of people would just get some extra work done in the car, or you could read a book, or you could just watch the street life, just look out your window. There's so many things to see every day. So I am working on a blog post and also a video where I'm gonna talk about having a driver specifically, so not driving, but actually the ins and outs, the positives and the negatives of having a driver. So definitely be on the lookout for that video. But in general, there are positives and negatives about having a driver. Of course, there are amazing things like after work, when you're tired, you don't want to deal with traffic. You can just, sit back and close your eyes or get some more work done or talk on the phone to a friend. So that part was nice. Or when you want to go out at night, you have a built-in designated driver. You don't have to worry about driving home. That was also a good part. But sometimes it was also hard to have a driver. You had to manage their schedule. So for example, if they come in on a Saturday morning and you go run some errands, go on a run, and then you're not sure if you're gonna go out to eat later on, like at 7 or 8 p.m., the driver would have to stay there all day long. and, see what your decision was. And there would be times where we would decide not to go out to eat. And I just felt really guilty keeping him there all day long in those instances. So for me, there was just like a little bit of guilt. I felt bad a lot. I think it was just I wasn't used to having a driver and those feelings. So that was something that I had to kind of work through and get more used to the longer I was in Luanda. So back to actual driving. The roads are not constructed very well. In fact, when it would rain, which was not very often, only about maybe 5, 6, 8 times a year, maybe, the roads would wash out. So there would be times when it was just a huge mud slick. You would have to be really careful. In fact, in other provinces in Angola outside of Luanda, people would lose their lives during rainstorms. And it wasn't even that bad of a rainstorm, but it would just wash out roads. It would wash outside of mountains. And so people would get injured. So that was just something that you have to be aware of if you are driving there. Or if you have a driver, still there might be roads that are impassable after the rain. And another important role of the driver was safety and kind of keeping their expats safe. There were areas that I didn't really know if they were safe or not. I wasn't sure if I should go to a certain area. And our driver would never take us someplace that was unsafe. Or if I wanted to go someplace unsafe, which I think happened once or twice, they would kind of warn me like, Madame, it's not a good place to go. We shouldn't go there. Is there someplace else we can go? So their other role other than driving you is really kind of keeping you safe and being that first point of security almost. They weren't security guards, but they definitely knew where we should and shouldn't go in the car. So speaking of safety, that brings us to our next topic, which is safety. Personally, I don't remember ever feeling unsafe when I lived in Luanda, Angola. There were a lot of times, like every day, when I would go to the grocery store or be on the street for some reason or walking to the office or lunch where I would get lots of strange looks because I don't look like an Angolan. So they're very curious about where you're from and you get a lot of looks, but I never felt unsafe living there. So when I lived in Luanda, I didn't really restrict myself to where I could go. Of course, the driver, if I did try to go somewhere again, which is only like 2 times, he would say, no, we shouldn't go there. But I really tried to get out there and go into as many neighborhoods as I could because I really wanted to experience Angola. And the only way to do that is to get out of the car and actually walk around some of the neighborhoods and actually walk around the markets. So that was really important to me to not feel restricted to just the expat compound or just the car or just the office. I really wanted to get out there and smell the smells and see the food and experience them laughing and talking. For me, that was really important, and I personally never felt in danger or like I shouldn't be doing that. But I did meet quite a few expat wives that lived in Luanda that would not do that. They would not walk the streets. They, for whatever reason, didn't feel safe. A lot of them would even go to grocery stores in pairs. So 2 women or 3 women would go to the grocery store together. Maybe they just wanted companionship, but it was definitely common that a lot of the wives I met didn't want to go out on the streets, didn't want to go into the markets to buy things, the street markets to buy things. But I was not that person. And I don't know, maybe it was my youth because I lived there from age 29 to 33. I just never really felt unsafe, and I never felt like there was some place that I couldn't go and just feel completely comfortable. But that's not to say that I didn't take quite a few precautions living there. So I felt safe and I felt confident all the time living in Luanda, but there were also things that I did to make myself feel safe and to not make myself a target. So the first one was wedding rings. I never wore my wedding rings in Angola, and I actually never wore them in Buenos Aires either. In fact, now that I live back in the States, I always forget to put it on. I've just gotten so used to over the past 7 years not wearing flashy jewelry or not wearing much jewelry at all. And that is a great precaution to staying safe on the streets, is not having anything flashy or that grabs attention, a big watch, any kind of rings, necklaces, earrings. You really want to keep that to a minimum if possible. Another thing to watch out for is your purse. I think a lot of women don't think about your purse being flashy, but I had the exact same purse for the entire 7 years of my expat life. So it just is a brown purse, small, over the shoulder. It got lots of scratches, lots of wear and tear. But I think it just was helpful in no one actually ever targeting me because it was just very plain. It didn't look flashy. It didn't look expensive. It wasn't expensive. And so that's a great tip for you as well. So basically the bottom line is you don't want to draw any extra attention to yourself. You don't want to make yourself a target because if you're moving to Luanda, Angola, the chances are you will already stick out due to your looks because you just won't look like most of the people there. So you don't want to add anything extra to you that will make you stick out. I also tried to be really observant when I was getting out of the car or walking around the city. An example would be at the grocery stores, there would be a lot of beggars outside, looking for money or wanting some free groceries when you came out of the store. So before I got out of the car, I would always make sure to see where somebody was. So if I saw somebody on my right side that was looking like they were going to ask for money, I would adjust my purse to where it was on my left side. So it was just, it wasn't so noticeable. It was more out of the way. Things like that are important to just kind of be really aware of your surroundings, and that way it'll just help you keep safe. All right, our third topic is Portuguese. And Portuguese is the official national language of Angola. There are, I think, like 100 plus different tribal dialects. Sometimes our drivers would talk in their tribal language, and it was so cool to hear. But there's so many of them because there were so many tribes, back in the day. But everybody pretty much speaks Portuguese. Well, everybody does speak Portuguese. So that is the language that you should try to learn when you move to Angola. Now, that's not to say that you can't live in Angola without knowing Portuguese. I saw many expats that only spoke English the entire time they lived there. They didn't learn many words other than maybe hi, bye, thank you, go. So it was pretty remedial Portuguese that they did know, if anything. So if you're planning on moving there and you don't want to learn Portuguese, you will be able to get by, but it will definitely be a little more difficult for you. So if you want to make your life a little bit easier or a lot easier when you move to Angola, I definitely highly suggest that you try and learn as much Portuguese as possible. So my husband and I started learning Portuguese in Houston before we actually moved to Angola. I think we took maybe about 10 lessons before we moved there, and it was really helpful in getting some Portuguese under our belt to help us when we actually landed there. And then we did continue lessons at work for, a few months, maybe half a year, up to a year. But then life got in the way, work became more busy, and honestly, the lessons kind of went to the wayside. So we never really got further than a beginner level in Portuguese, but we at least knew enough to communicate with people around us and to help build relationships with Angolans in the office. And that's really, to me, why it was so important to learn Portuguese. And when I saw other expats struggle, the biggest one was building relationships with Angolans in the office. So if you're planning on moving there on an expat assignment with your company, building relationships with the local Angolans is super important, and it will be a big part of your job. And you don't have to know a lot of Portuguese, but just being able to say a few things, bom dia, maybe you want to ask them how their kids are, those types of things. You really want to be able to at least say a few words or a few sentences in Portuguese. And that will really go a long way to kind of building and solidifying your relationship with some of your colleagues. And also at home, it was really crucial. The small Portuguese skills that I did have were super crucial in communicating with my maid, with my drivers, with our gardener, and then with people that came to the house. So internet providers, cable providers, people that are working on the pool, people that were working on our water tank. It was really important that I knew some basic Portuguese so I could kind of use those context clues, use some of the words that I did know to figure out what they were telling me. And there are maids and drivers that speak English, but they're very, very hard to find, and they are normally employed. So Those are the ones that get employed first. So it's very difficult to find a maid that speaks English. So definitely don't expect that when you move to Luanda. And finally, most Angolans that you'll meet there don't speak English. So yes, your colleagues will speak English, the Angolans that work in your office, but as soon as you leave your office, you go to the grocery store, you go to the restaurant, you go out to a nightclub, you get home and talk to your maid or nanny or driver. The vast majority, like 99% of them, will not speak English. So any little bit of Portuguese you can learn is going to be so helpful, and it will make your life so much easier living in Luanda. And I also just personally feel like it really helps you kind of assimilate to the country when you learn at least a little bit of the language. I know that, getting to an expert level or getting to fluent after just a few years, a lot of people think that's easy, but it's really not. Learning a new language is extremely difficult. I had to learn some Portuguese and I had to learn some Spanish, and I understand that learning a language is really hard. But I'm just a big believer in at least trying to learn a little bit, to try and assimilate more, to understand the culture more. And it also goes a long way with the culture that you're living in. So if Angolans see you trying and they see you trying to learn their language, they will definitely be more receptive to you, which is good for everyone. So definitely learn as much Portuguese as you can before you move to Luanda. All right, guys, those are the topics for today's video. I hope you learned something new. If you are thinking you're gonna still be moving to Luanda, then I made an activity list that is just for you. It is 40 plus things to do when you're living in Luanda. Everything from restaurants you have to try, to activities, to places you need to go on a walk. It's a great list, so if you're thinking about moving there, definitely head to the link down in my bio to get that list. And again, if you haven't watched the first video in the series, then definitely go check it out. I will also leave it linked below. It talks about the poverty in Angola, expat housing, and food. And I have my third video coming up probably in a week or two. And so hit that red subscribe button so you are alerted when that video comes out as well. All right, guys, I will see you next week. Bye.